Have we been perfect through our national history? Absolutely not. Right? I mean, we had slavery for 160 years. There was a civil war fought over it. Some people learned that later in life than others.
What is good, family? Y'all know who it is. So I gotta react to a clip from Vivek Ramaswamy, my all-time favorite #2 after the GOAT, Donald Trump. So Vivek had a question from an Iowa pastor who, perhaps this was a gotcha type of question. I kind of believe it was. He's asking Vivek about whether reverse racism just equals racism. And essentially, it kind of sounded like he wanted Vivek to put more emphasis, or that people in general should put more emphasis on slavery coming primarily from white people versus black people being racist, as if it was like okay for other minority groups to be racist, but not white people because there was slavery and civil rights movement and Jim Crow and so forth. And Vivek apparently dismantled this argument. I haven't really seen it. Okay, so we're going to be reacting to this together. Let's get into it.
My first question is, I was looking on this pamphlet right here.
Yep.
And one of the things that obviously stuck out to me was reverse racism. Is racism. And so my question to that is, I've always thought too that, although I agree with that, I've always thought too that prejudice and discrimination are inherently tied to, historically rooted and entrenched institutionalized forms of systemic racism, and hierarchies, injustice, and power imbalance. And so my question here is, if you believe with this kind of power structures that have existed and continues to exist, how do you go about, or how might you go about reconciling these structures?
Thank you. And did you have a second question too?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The second question is, I'm a pastor, and as a pastor, just as America needs saving, I think pastors also need saving, and part of that starts with fitness. I saw you on Instagram with Logan Paul.
Yeah.
You guys were doing push-ups.
Yeah, that's right.
You did it for boxer.
Yeah.
So would you mind doing 10 push-ups with a pastor?
That's right. You got that. Right. You want to start with that? Let's start with that. Come here. Count them out, buddy. Let's go. Ready? Ready, go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
This is kind of funny.
1, 2.
Let's go, Vivek. Oh, Vivek kind of quick with it. Okay, I see you.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So
There you go. That's good.
Props
I didn't even
to
get my workout today. That's
props
good.
to
That's
Vivek
good.
for
That's
being
good.
a good sport.
I'm proud of you. That's
him
good.
that.
Thank you, man. That's a favor to me. I like that. Did my wife call you beforehand and tell you we had to? She planted that one, didn't she? She said I'm not exercising enough on the campaign trail. She's looking out for me. That's good, man. What's your name?
I'm Samuel Anson.
Samuel? Okay, good to meet you. So I want to address the first question. I think it's great. I think we, as I said in the beginning, we don't have these kinds of open conversations anymore in this country. And so the heart of the question, let me summarize it, is reverse racism is racism. You agree with me on one hand, but on the other hand, how does that account for historical injustices in this country, including power structures that may be based on inequalities grounded in race? It's the heart of the question? Yeah, fair. Thank you. So here's my view on this.
Before he even gets into this real quick, I just want to point out that the original concept of racism was based off of judging individuals based off their skin. Discrimination is defined separately, right? And oppression is defined separately. And what they started doing is blending all of these things together to make it where you could never be guilty of racism, primarily if you were black. So no matter what you did or said, you weren't racist because, well, you're a minority, so it doesn't matter what you do. Your people on the whole don't have enough power for you to be racist, which is just inherently false because whatever, we already went over this on this channel, so there's plenty of other videos where I talk about this, but you know what I'm saying. There's all kinds of situations where black folks could team up and be racist against a few white people. It happens literally all the time in America. It just is what it is. So the whole concept of racism as it currently is defined today is just a false narrative to begin with.
Have we been perfect through our national history? Absolutely not. Right? I mean, we had slavery for 160 years. There was a civil war fought over it. Some people learned that later in life than others.
Shout out to Nikki Haley.
But you know, that's history, right? It's American history. And so the question is, what do we do about it now? So I'll give you my honest, sort of candid feelings about where we are. Was there a time and place for correcting for those past injustices? Yeah, I think it was like in 1870. And did we do a perfect job of it? No, we didn't. But at a certain point in time, I think that what you would think of as racism in this country, or you could fill in the blank, sexism, or any other ism or form of discrimination, it gets to be small enough, not to be zero, but small enough, that the best thing we can do is let it atrophy to irrelevance. And if otherwise you try to attack it, it's like an immune system. My background's in biology, so sometimes I think in these kinds of analogies. But it's like an immune system trying to fight a virus long after the virus is gone, or almost gone even.
Gonna jack yourself up.
It starts to just attack its own organs.
Exactly.
That's what I see happening in the country. And so here's my view, to make that kind of abstract reflection a little simpler. Today, the best way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race.
Facts.
That's what I believe. And I think that in the name of anti-racism, which is a movement that calls out for us to be more race conscious of the differences, to correct for them, I think we've actually created more racism in this country. And it's sad because, so I've started businesses, of multiple different businesses this campaign. It turns out I've hired...
He's basically saying don't like essentially pick on and bully white people in response to what's happened in the past. Otherwise, you're just going to create essentially a situation where there's vitriol between the groups where there doesn't need to be, right? So obviously, if there is something that's egregious enough, then you can call it out. Like people just going around using racial slurs and all of this stuff casually or with intent to harm or burning crosses again and stuff like that, it makes a lot more sense. But in modern times where people will literally call pretty much anything racist, like if somebody cut somebody off on the road and a black person who gets cut off is cut off by a white person, then they'll claim that's racist. I mean, it could be anything. If somebody's rude at the post office, oh, this person's racist. Like, it could be anything. That somebody just wants to holler and scream racism all the time. And when you do that, it diminishes what it means for racism to be a thing at all. It diminishes what it means to actually call out racism, because now everybody's going to think it's like the boy who cried wolf. It's like, yeah, let me guess. They hate black people. Yeah, they were racist against you, huh? Yeah, like nobody's going to care. This includes every group, not just other white people not going to care, other black people not going to care like me, because I see tons of black people do this constantly. I didn't get this job I wanted. Oh, they're racist. I didn't get into the school I wanted. Oh, they're racist. Oh, these people treated me some type of way at the grocery store. Oh, they're racist. It's like, well, have you ever considered that maybe those people are just some assholes? I'm just saying. Or that perhaps your skills weren't up to snuff if it was related to school or a job or anything like that. That's also a possibility. How do we know for sure that racism was involved? A lot of times we can't.
People of every combination, you could probably not every combination, but most combinations you could imagine of race and gender and this or that or the other thing. In one case, it was a black woman who was in a senior position of authority. One of the well-compensated, high position of authority. A lot of people would be jealous of that position and want it. And I heard, right, somebody who's upset she's above the hierarchy. She just got her job because she's a black woman. She's checking a box. And that hurt me, not because I took it as an insult, because I don't hire people that way. But it hurts me to say that's unfair to her. It's not fair to anybody. It's not just to anybody to stand for a system where we see each other as called upon to see each other on the basis of the color of our skin. And so at a certain point, the right answer is, I think we have to move forward. If we drive with our eyes in the rearview mirror, we're just going to keep crashing the same car and recreating the very thing we wanted it to eradicate. So that's what I believe. And that's why I'm against, what you'll call, what does that refer to, reverse racism, like affirmative action, right? Quota systems, direct or indirect. I'm against them because I think they're inherently divisive. They're anti-meritocratic. I think they're anti-American at their core. And so you will never, it's kind of like, in a philosophical sense, like the answer to the first question. We're never going to defeat the people who disagree with us by censoring them, by using the tools of the opposition against them. So I say that in the category of speech. Well, we Republicans have been censored, and we have. Conservative speech has been censored, so we're going to come back and censor you. We're never going to win that way because you lose the very thing we're fighting for. So it's the same thing. Well, we experienced racism. Now we're going to get racism in reverse. We never win by using the toolkits of the other side. And you're on a higher pay grade than me as a pastor. I'm just running to be president, but you're operating on a different plane. But I think that it's something that you might think of as mercy. At a certain level, what is our path forward as a country? At some point is going to have to, at some point in time. I mean, there's a time for justice and there's a time for mercy. And those two things are in tension with one another, right? And I think at this moment we live in, I got a question yesterday. Somebody asked me a question. He said, what was the cause of the Civil War? And do you think that there's a civil war in this country right now? I think we are skating on thin ice as a country right now.
Facts.
I think we are in the middle
Facts.
of a cold cultural civil war right now. I don't want to see it turn hot. But I think it's going to require a combination of both justice, accountability for those who have committed those wrongs, with a blindfold of justice, but also some level of saying we will move on as a country. And so that's what I believe. And so hopefully that addresses your question for how I think about it. Not denying past inequity, but by acknowledging that at a certain point we're going to do about as well as we could, and then we decide the best thing for all of us is to aspire to our ideals. And this is what makes America beautiful. Are we a perfect nation? No, we are not. We never have been, and we never will be. Because here's why. I can tell you why it will never be the case. There's two things that are true about us. We're human beings, we're not gods. And we're still a nation that has ideals. See, it's interesting how nobody calls China hypocritical, or Iran, or Pakistan, or anywhere else. You don't hear the allegations of those nations being hypocritical. To be hypocritical, you had to have ideals in the first place. So as a nation that has ideals and a nation that's comprised of human beings, we will always fall short of those ideals. But we're founded on the pursuit of a more perfect union. The pursuit of liberty, equality, and justice for all. That is what makes America great. That is what makes America itself.
So yeah, I mean, the idea here is pretty straightforward. In layman's terms, Vivek is basically saying, hey, don't turn around and make race quotas where you're essentially placing artificially different minority groups in positions just because disenfranchising white folks, just because causing racial division and raising racial division in the name of closing racial division, being extremely woke and doing things that nobody asked for, like getting rid of Aunt Jemima, like stupid stuff, right? DEI initiatives, just things that are just blatant waste of time and insulting. I worked at a company and they had like these woke calls where you could like join and discuss being like a black victim. And they had these calls like every week where you just jump on a call and you could just talk about how much of a victim you were and just vent to other black people and I think it was mainly for black people. And I found it kind of weird because they literally just made this call and invited all the black people to it. And I'm like, where'd y'all get this information from? I guess it was from HR information that nobody could totally ever use against you if they really wanted to, right? But I found this to be like idiotic. I was like, why do I, because this was like during work. I was like, I have actual work to do. Why do I want to just sit around and just vent about how tough it is to be black when I got actual work that I want to do? And the faster I could get done with the work, the faster I could not do as much work. But if I'm sitting up there just venting and feeling bad for myself, that's going to slow me down because, for one thing, I'm on that call doing it in the first place. And two, usually, at least for people like me, I feel worse about, like, once I really bring up all of this negative emotion, I feel worse and slow down in my productivity rather than speeding up and feeling like, yeah, I got all that off my chest. That doesn't really help people like me, at least. So maybe some other people need that, but not me. Okay? Like, I definitely see what Vivek is saying here. The only true path is to take matters into your own hands and just move forward, okay? Move to the beat of your own drum. Take control of your life and just move forward. Don't worry about everything that happened in the past. Learn your history, right? Learn your history. They still teach it in school. I don't care what nobody says about critical race theory and all this stuff. Black history is still taught in school across America, period. If anybody tells you it's not, lies. Okay? Critical race theory, black history, not the same thing. Okay? So, yes, by all means, learn your history, but you also have to learn your history, and the point of it is to move past it in a better way than what happened in the past. Not to continuously relive it. Okay? Not to just keep going on and on, experiencing the same trauma that happened to our ancestors. We don't need to be feeling all their trauma. They suffer, so we don't got to. Okay? We need to be moving forward. Not trying to make white folks suffer and all of this other stuff. And certainly not trying to make minority groups suffer too because of the past either. You know what I'm saying? That is, I think, what's key. And I think Vivek is spot on. We just need to keep it moving forward. And it's also funny how he took a dunk on Nikki Haley as well, saying that some of us learned about the reason for the Civil War a little later than others. That was pretty freaking hilarious. Again, that's why Vivek is my guy. So Vivek 2028, Trump 2024. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I appreciate y'all watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I almost didn't get the anomaly out there. I'm out.